It's noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And this is news that you can use from CarEdge for Thursday, January 25th, with your hosts, me, Ray, and, well, the good-looking guy, Zach, desperate to come up with show topic titles. Oh, I wasn't supposed to mention that? I'm sorry. We're overflowing with ideas here, folks. I think somebody's mad at me.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, man. All right, here you go. Go for it. Give me a sec. I'll be right back. I'm good.
You good?
I'm annoyed.
Yeah, but what's the news of the day? Nearly 5,000 dealerships send a second letter urging President Biden to hit the brakes on EVs. Are those regenerative brakes or just regular brakes?
Yep, there you go. So we've got car dealers nationwide writing a second letter, Dad. Dealerships are overflowing with electric vehicle inventory. That's what's interesting when you start to look at Cox Automotive data. You actually see electric vehicle days supply of inventory is higher than internal combustion engine vehicle supply. So you've got a dynamic here of dealers who do not want to see this electric push because they say consumers are not interested in them. And then at the same time, you have an economic, incentive here. Vehicles sitting around on dealer lots means they're not making money. We see this all the time, Dad, with Mustang Mach-E inventories, Volkswagen ID4s. Day supplies are through the roof. Are you surprised that dealer groups and dealerships are lobbying to the federal government to say, hey, slow down on your EPA proposal for how quickly you need to go to electric vehicles?
I believe in my heart of hearts that the government thinking way back when was overly aggressive. It is one thing to pick arbitrary dates, but whether or not you actually have anything in position to be able to hit those dates is what's relevant. And the truth of the matter is that except for states like perhaps Florida, New York, California, there really isn't as much charging infrastructure around as we would like. Or let me rephrase that, as the industry would like. So that there are any number of people who have suggested that they could or would consider an EV, but they're fearful of it because they want to see the infrastructure build out before they commit to something like that. Now,
what do you make of dealers doing the lobbying, though? I mean, this is them all kind of creating a unified front and saying, this is the second letter that's been written to the federal government. There was an initial letter about a month ago. 4,000 dealers said, hey, stop. We do not want to see the federal government push electric vehicles onto our customers. Now, this is the second letter. Nearly 5,000 dealers saying the same exact thing. You're overly ambitious with the push to electrification. We're not ready for it. Our customers are not ready for it. I find that there's obviously an economic piece of this. There's a reason they're doing it. Outside of political stance, there's a reason they're doing it, an economic one, which is EV sales are not happening as quickly. The growth has started to slow down a little bit. EVs are still growing in adoption way faster than any other segment of vehicle. But, and it's like in anything, Dad, when you go from 0 to 1, you can do that faster than you go from 100 to 150. Like, just as the scale gets bigger, it's harder to grow as quickly. But still, I find it interesting that these dealers are really advocating and pushing.
I would think this would be the perfect time for the president to get together with the dealers and to get together with the FTC and make a deal. And here's the deal. Okay, we'll delay electrification for a little bit. We'll push back, say, from, 2030 to 2035, or maybe even 2040. Assuming, of course, that you agree to the new cars regulations from the FTC and you clean up your act and you clean up how it is that you sell cars in this country. And if you're not willing to do that, well, then guess what? Your ass is in that sling that says you got to figure out how you're going to sell all those EVs that nobody wants. And I think this could be the perfect time for that conversation. There is nothing about politics if it isn't, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. Okay? Dealers want something. They desperately want something. They want to delay electrification as long as they can because A, their customers aren't clamoring for it like everybody thought they would. B, the infrastructure isn't there. C, wintertime publicity is as negative as it can possibly be with some of the charging issues in the colder areas. Perfect time. Perfect time to say you want to delay it, we'll delay it. You have to implement CARS regulations by July 30th. You have to rescind your lawsuit asking for a delay in the Fifth Circuit Court in Texas, and just agree that you're going to change fundamentally how you sell cars. And if they're in on that, if the dealers are in on that, which they won't be, but if they were, if they could see that as a fair trade-off, then everybody would be better served. The buying public would be better served. The dealers would be better served. The manufacturers who are taking it in the shorts on every one of these EVs that they're building would be better served. So it's the perfect time. Somebody step up. They need me to go in there and say hello. Hello. Let's go. Let's try and all get on the same page here.
So we'll trade EV push for FTC CARS rules that protect consumers. I think it's a novel suggestion. I do want to just pull up the EPA push, the proposal. Yes. I'll read it verbatim. At issue is the EPA's proposed vehicle emission standards for 2027 to 2032 model year cars and light trucks. If finalized, the proposal could push battery electric vehicles to 60% of new vehicle sales by 2030 model year and 67% by 2032, according to the agency's projections. And again, just to demonstrate this once more, the latest Cox Automotive data on market day supply shows electric vehicle inventory remains well above the industry average at 114 days supply. So the storyline here of dealers for the second time, forming a coalition to advocate for the slowdown of the EPA's proposed rules. Again, regardless of how you think about electric vehicles from a political standpoint, what's the word? Climate standpoint, all those things, yes. Throw them out the window. Technology standpoint, it's going to cost dealers money to sell electric vehicles because these cars are sitting for longer and all the upgrades to their facilities. So no wonder they're pushing back on this.
Well, if I was a dealer and my EV inventory was sitting, well, then, why would I want to move ahead with capital expenditures for the infrastructure that's required to sell even more EVs that nobody's clamoring for at the time? I think those are some really interesting numbers that the EPA proposals are. What was it, 60% by 2030 and 60%? That's not happening. Okay, it's not going to happen. The public is not clamoring for EVs in the manner in which you would need to be able to hit those kind of numbers. Yes, EV sales have grown year over year over year over year. They are growing at a slightly slower rate than they have in the past. Okay, manufacturers keep coming out with new models. New models keep sitting, evidenced by that day supply. It's pretty apparent that 92.4% of people who bought cars last year didn't buy EVs. Okay, maybe didn't even consider an EV. Maybe would never consider an EV. But to suddenly suggest that, well, whether you want an EV or not, you're going to have one in the future, and that future is 4.5 years away. No, we're a long way from that, and I get why the dealers don't want it, because they see that the public isn't quite as enamored with it as people thought they would be. And I understand how government comes up with mandates at times that are unrealistic. Typically, anytime the government comes up with some type of mandate, it's unrealistic. When it came to emission standards for vehicles or gas mileage standards, how many manufacturers got caught cheating the test so that they could qualify and reach the standards that were mandated that were, well, without cheating the test, were impossible to accomplish?
We just had one at the end of last year. Which truck maker was it? It was a commercial truck company.
I
Oh,
forget.
man. But there was one that literally at the end of last year, it was a $2 billion settlement.
Cummins
Yeah.
Diesel. Yeah.
Yeah.
$2 billion. Yeah. Because they've been cheating the test forever now. Because the
Even that
standard,
happened with Toyota. Remember, that was the big
yes,
Toyota news with Daihatsu. They were cheating on the emission test.
yes,
Yeah.
it's been going on for years because of government mandated proposals that are not obtainable. Okay, it would have been like me at 13 when I was 5'2", saying, well, by the time I'm 16, I need to be 5'8". And by the time I'm 19, I need to be 6 foot. Well, I never got to 5'7". It's some of this stuff is just a dream. It's a fever dream that the government suddenly has. Yes, you can push for improvements. You can push for innovation. You can't necessarily mandate it. Okay, if the people aren't willing to accept it, that's the wrong mandate. So, I'll go back to what I said before. It is the perfect time to sit the dealership group down with the FTC group and the EPA and see how they can work all this out to everybody, so everybody can go home a little bit happy. Not 100% happy, but everybody can get something.
Let's look at a few examples in Miami, Florida, of market day supply right now. So inventory levels, because again, I'm tying this back to if inventory wasn't high right now,
Yes.
if EVs were selling off the shelves, there'd be no pushback on this because it'd be
No.
making these dealers money. When it's costing them money, that's where the contention comes from. So again, we're in Miami, Florida. Let's look at a few. I've got quite a few queued up. 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQS, the base one, $135,000. To each their own. I do not find this attractive, but to each their own. 131 days supply. This is Miami, Florida. 128 for sale. 44 have sold in the last 45 days. What about maybe the EQS SUV? Again, to each their own. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
We've got 131 days supply, 128 and 44. There you go. So very similar. Then, Dad, what if we went over to like a Hyundai Ioniq 6? Remember when this came out?
Yes.
This was like the hot new EV. It kind of looks like a Porsche 911 from behind in some odd way. $50,000 MSRP, which is absolutely nuts. And there are 17 for sale, and one has sold in the last 45 days in Miami, Florida, leading to a 765 days supply. Wowza, that's quite high. What about the Ioniq 5? These are expensive as well. $56,000 for a Hyundai. Seems like an awful lot. 326 days supply, 58 for sale, 8 have sold in the last 45 days. Maybe a BMW i7 is more your cup of tea, $150,000 electrified BMW. Wow, that is expensive, man. That's got a 70 days supply, so 67 for sale, 43 have sold in the last 45 days.
You know what this shows? That at least in Miami, Florida, that the EVs that are going to sell, even though they're selling slowly, are the really expensive ones. So maybe that's driven by the drug cartels. I don't know, and that the buyers from those cartels, they're the ones that can afford the Ioniq 5 and the Ioniq 6, but they ain't buying it because it's really, even that's not quite affordable enough.
It is interesting. This is just one market. This is Miami, which is definitely not representative of everywhere in the
do me a favor. Do me a favor, since you like to do things live on the show. Do Omaha, Nebraska.
All right,
I mean, that's the heart of the Midwest. It gets pretty flippin' chilly there in the winter. Chilly might be an understatement. Just curious as to how EV, how many EVs has Warren Buffett bought I'm sure he's trying to sell a few through his Berkshire Hathaway dealership group, but how many has he personally bought? My guess is 0, but it's just a guess.
So here we go, Dad. I'm on the car search. I entered an Omaha, Nebraska zip code.
Okay.
So that's the 68007. Electric, new. That's all we're looking at. First one is a Hyundai Kona. We've got an Ioniq 6. Let's compare the Ioniq 6. Let me open up this.
Yeah. Let's compare the Ioniq 6 with how well they're selling in Miami and how well they're selling in Omaha.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my. You can't see it, but I'm going to show you. You ready?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So how they doing in Omaha?
For the folks on the podcast, there's a 932-day supply of Hyundai Ioniq 6s in Omaha, Nebraska. 145 of them for sale. 7 have sold in the last 45 days. That compares to Miami, where there was a 765-day supply, 17 for sale, and 1 had sold in the last 45 days. This is live. We don't premeditate any of this. That is wild. Let's look at a few more.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that all the dealers in that area signed on to that letter.
All right. Yeah. Do you want to look at it in Ioniq 5 instead of the Ioniq 6?
Sure. And then we can look at some of them Mercedes Benzes.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. All right. So we've got the Hyundai Ioniq 5. This is the SEL trim. It's loading a 390-day supply. Wow. This is eye-opening. This is eye-opening to do live. This is wild. 399 for sale. 46 have sold in the last 45 days of Hyundai Ioniq 5s in Omaha, Nebraska.
Huge market. Huge
oh my
market
gosh, you want to do the
EVs.
Subaru Solterra, Dad?
Oh, well, Solterras don't sell.
Solterras don't sell. We all know this, but let's at least look because this will maybe give us a chuckle. Oh, only 113-day supply. That's actually way better.
There's only 5.
Yeah. Because there are only 5.
Yeah.
All right, we're back here. Let's keep looking. We've got ID4s, Audi Q4, the Q8 e-tron. Just tell me when, and I'll click on one.
Click on a Q8, an e-tron.
Okay, let me not do an SQ. Yeah, here we go. 171-day supply, 80 for sale, 21 have sold. Let's do a Mercedes. Let's find a Mercedes real quick.
Yeah. So
I could search for it, but let's see.
So I don't know if there's a very limited market for them in Miami, where the weather is relatively good for EVs. There's no market in Omaha, where the weather is miserable and people aren't buying them. Yeah, I mean, I understand. Why don't we get with the dealers that signed that letter and with the EPA and the FTC and the president and share our data with them and say, I'm not suggesting you should always listen to dealers, but this might be one of the cases where you do, where you look at what it is you're trying to push and realize that you might be pushing it, but nobody's buying it. It's like a drug dealer selling drugs nobody wants.
What is it with you and drug dealers today, man?
I don't know. We were in Miami. What can I tell you? It's like the federal government needs to wake up, and the dealership.
How do you reconcile it, though? Because Alan's got a good point.
Yeah.
The best-selling car in the world is the Tesla Model Y. How do we reconcile
That's the world. That's the world. That's not okay. Everybody keeps saying it's the best-selling car in the world. Okay. We're talking about the United States here. So, is it a popular car in the United States? Yes, it's a popular car in the United States. Is it the most? I don't know if it's the most popular car in the United States. It sells. Okay. Tesla took it in the shorts in the fourth quarter. Profits are down. Sales are.
We don't have to make it a Tesla. We don't have to make it a Tesla stream. I just mean it's interesting because you have dealers pushing, which we just demonstrated live, they're pushing back because they can't sell these things as quickly as they want to, and they're paying money every day. The 932-day supply of Hyundai Ioniq 6s in Omaha, Nebraska means that bank accounts are going down, not up, for car dealers. That's why they're pushing back. And then it's tough to reconcile with, but there is mass adoption of electric vehicles going on through non-dealers, through Tesla, which is super interesting to think about.
Yes, but it's, it's even Tesla can't keep up with the they haven't been able to push the pace to keep up with what the government would like to see. So yeah, the world's a big place. That's a much bigger market than the United States. So yeah, I mean, I get it. Yeah, Tesla models sell. I get that. But if EVs represent 7.6% of all vehicles sold, I don't know, that, like I said, that leaves 92.4% that, well, aren't EVs. It's still the overwhelming vast majority of the buying public is not buying EVs, at least not at this point. And
again,
how much will that change by 2030? Will it really be that 60% of the buying public is buying EVs? My guess is no. That's just my guess. But I don't.
Again, I want to tie this back to the headline from the day, which is nearly 5,000 dealerships send a second letter urging President Biden to hit the brakes on EV push. The dealerships say customers are not ready for the switch to battery electric vehicles. So that's what we were leading off with today, trying to tie it back to some data that we can actually reference, which is obviously how we ended up in Omaha, Nebraska, looking at Hyundai Ioniq 5s and 6s that have, hundreds of days supply, which is not tenable for long-term success. I want to tie it into another thing here, Dad, which is used electric vehicle prices are also way more volatile than other vehicles. Here's the latest Manheim market update, broken down by segment of vehicle. Declines for electric vehicles year over year at the wholesale auctions were nearly 20% in value versus ICE SUVs were 9.7, pickups were 10.3, sedans were 11.7, or the overall index, which was down 10%. So electric vehicles were depreciated, as far as Manheim's data concerned, at the wholesale auctions twice as fast, twice as great, I guess I should say, in terms of magnitude, as other vehicles, which I think is another storyline here, which is like dealers don't know how to price used electric vehicles and are losing money there as well. No wonder there's pushback from the industry.
I would think if I was a dealer, I'd be scared to death to trade one. I mean, what's the right amount of money to appraise it for? How long is it going to take you to sell it as a used vehicle? Most dealerships don't have enough experience with used EVs to be able to accurately appraise them. And one of the other reasons that they dropped as much as they did is because original MSRPs have come down dramatically on some EVs, not most, but on Teslas in particular,
Definitely.
which has had a negative impact for the wholesale value of the pre-owned ones. And let's face it, the early adopters, they paid a premium. They were in on this. They were excited about the technology. They wanted to help save the world and the climate and everything else. And this is the way to do it. So a lot of those people overspent to be an early adopter, to show that there's something here, that there's a there when it comes to EVs. And so those people in particular have lost the most. But for them, it wasn't a question of how it was going to retain its value. It was, how is it going to impact climate control moving forward?
Well, broad generalization, but yes, I think the early adopters were probably motivated less by what's the financial impact of purchasing this vehicle and more by other factors, whether it be the climate, the political, the tech aspect, like whatever it is. Those are the factors that drove those decisions. And now that we're transitioning into more mass market appeal, Those are less of the drivers and more drivers. I mean, like drivers for action, not physical drivers, people driving the car. More people at a mass market level are going to be concerned about price point. They're going to be concerned about the things they hear in the news about reliability and whatnot. So I think those are things that are now driving, again, the actual, not physically driving, but like moving the market. Those are what's driving decision-making for a lot of people right now. And again, back to the reason why you see an incumbent piece of infrastructure in the United States, not the world, but the United States, car dealers pushing back pretty significantly because it's not profitable for them yet. And I don't understand that for the automakers.
Yes.
It's not really that profitable yet, or it's not profitable at all. Like this transition period is really tricky, I think, for a lot of the existing businesses because they're trying to make enough money to fund it with other stuff while losing money. It's like, I don't envy them. I think it's a very challenging position to be in.
Ford projected when they cut back on what they expected EV sales to be in 2023, they projected that their electric vehicle division would lose. Originally, they had projected it would lose $3 billion for the year. When they cut back the amount of sales they anticipated, that number rose to $4.5 billion. Now that is more than made up for by the amount of profit that they're making through commercial sales, through their Pro division and through their ICE divisions, because they still ended up making, I don't know, $14 billion or something like that. So even after a $4.5 billion loss on the EV side of things, they're still making money. But they're not making money on the EV side of things. And let's face it, Tesla didn't make money initially either. It's the new technology, it's the new investments, it's capital intensive, and there's going to be losses until you finally reach that break-even point. But if the public isn't buying at the level that you anticipated so that you could reach that break-even point, well, then that break-even point's further out than what you had originally thought. They could be losing billions upon billions of dollars for the foreseeable future. And I know, that Ford said, our EV division is going to be profitable by 2025. Well, that is about as likely a scenario as the EPA position that 60% of all vehicles sold in 2030 will be EVs. Some of this is not just tethered in reality.
It's also as likely as Ford being, not number one in terms of recalls. I think there's it's just like some things we know are going to happen, and some of these aspirations are exactly that. They're aspirations, not grounded in reality. Let's jump to the chat here, Dan, for a minute. Thank you for the contribution, Matthew Haskin. CarEdge has no extended warranty options for my 2020 Land Rover Discovery TD6. I'm proud of myself because I was able to read that. No CarEdge warranty option on Land Rover products. I think that speaks for itself, means they're really expensive to own. So sorry about that, Matthew. We do not have a CarEdge extended warranty for Land Rover products. We do for pretty much everything else. We are running the promotion between now and the end of the month to get a discount on that. Please go check it out. From Chris K. Thank you, Chris, for the contribution. And Matthew, again, sorry, we can't help. Chris says, thanks again, Ray and Zach, for the insights leading to a great deal on a new Subaru Forester. CarEdge helped so much. That's got to make you feel good, Pops.
It does indeed. And, and Subaru's on the upswing again. Popular vehicle, low day supply, finding their feet again, their footing, and even though they have a low day supply, still being able to increase production. And they've got 3 hot vehicles. They really do.
Yeah. Congrats, Chris. Job well done. Thanks for sharing that with us. And then, Dad, we got a double whammy here from Chad. So I'll give you a quick second to acknowledge that.
Oh, thank you, Chad, as I work on my glutes again today. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then Chad says here, thank you for the contribution, Chad. Chad says, this round of EVs has taken me from anti-electric vehicle to excited about electric vehicles. I have high hopes that within my lifetime, I see the technological and infrastructure advances to make them a realistic option. I think that's a fairly pragmatic and obviously you're entitled to your opinion, but that's a pragmatic statement right there, in my opinion.
That is. But I don't know how old or young Chad is, and when he says, I have high hopes that within my lifetime, what does that mean to you within your lifetime? Does that mean within the next 5 years? Does that mean within the next 10 years? Are we talking 15 years? Because there's a big difference if you're anticipating greatness from this, if it's 15 years from now, than say if it's 5 years from now.
Definitely. I think that's a lot of what led to today's show. Was these dealers are saying, we have too much inventory. It's 2024. We have too much inventory. You think things are going to change more quickly in 6 years than we do. We're going to fight you on that.
Well,
if the rule had been by 2050, do you think we'd be talking about this? No.
Oh, heck
Absolutely
no. Nobody, Chad said in 20 years. And I agree with you. Yeah, in 20 years, I think that's a realistic number. In 20 years, to say that we have everything in place for EVs to be technologically advanced, the ability to be able to fuel them up, to charge them up. But to say that that's going to happen in the next 5.5 years, I think we need to look at a longer time frame, a more realistic time frame, in order to get to the goals that governments may have set. Who knows? I mean, certainly we're talking about trying to predict the future. Hell, I can't even remember what the hell I did yesterday. I worked on my glutes yesterday. But you can extrapolate using some of the data that we have available, that what the government has suggested they'd like to see happen and what will actually happen aren't even close in nature.
Well, yeah, that's exactly, I think, the point. The inventory side of this is what is the story, is the real story, is what's happening to inventory on the ground today. Go to Omaha, Nebraska, and it's not looking pretty in terms of how quickly electric vehicles are selling. Taker, thank you for the contribution. Taker says, my local Hyundai dealer is offering $11,000 to $15,000 off their entire inventory of Ioniq 5s and 6s. Local Kia dealer has 53 EV6s with minimum $5,000 off. That is insanity, because it was only a year ago, 18 months ago, where people were paying over sticker price for Hyundai Ioniq 5s, for Kia EV6s. I will let everyone know, big news back on CarEdge.com. We now offer to buy a Hyundai vehicle on CarEdge.com. So if you're interested in purchasing a new Hyundai, let us know. Fill out our little form right here. If you're in the Northeast, we have free shipping to you pretty much anywhere north of Maryland. You're going to be able to get free shipping delivered to your door. Outside of that, there could be extra shipping charges. It is a bit expensive to move these vehicles, but Hyundais are now available for purchase on CarEdge.com. We obviously have the Chevy Trax offer that ends at the end of the month, Ford F-150s with the manufacturer subvented interest rate that you can buy on CarEdge.com. We got more and more inventory coming online. Hyundai's a big one, I think, especially now that we can get even more aggressive and competitive pricing as inventory builds up.
Exactly. Very nicely done, young man.
Thank you, Dad. Slowly but surely, we're building something here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's call it a show. We're going to have another show tomorrow, and then I think if you're up for it, Dad, let's do one on Saturday night as well. But for today, let's call it a show. Thank you for the conversation.
It's always a pleasure to see you. Sometimes it's even a pleasure to piss you off, and I apologize for that up front and after the fact as well. And yes, I would love to do a Saturday night show. There's no football Saturday night, so yes, let's do a live Saturday night show, and we'll see you all back here tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, for those of you out on the West Coast. Thanks,
Thank you, Pops.